There was a state in ancient India called Shakya. The ruler of this state was King Sudhodan, who ruled from the capital Kapilavastu. He married Princess Maya Devi, who was the daughter of King Suprabudh. Queen Maya Devi dreamt of a white elephant carrying a white lotus flower circling around her bed thrice and entering her stomach from the right side. The wise men confirmed that the dream was an indication of the birth of a great being to the royal couple. As was the tradition, Queen Maya Devi travelled to her parents' home in Devdaha for her first confinement. On the way, she stopped at Lumbini to admire the surroundings and rest for a while. It was a full moon day and the queen got labor pain and gave birth to a baby boy under a sal tree. On the fifth day, after the baby was born, the king invited 5 renowned Brahmins for the naming ceremony. After examining the marks on the body of the infant, the priest said that if the prince chooses to stay in the lay life, he would become the universal monarch, and if he happened to see the old, sick, dead, and the religious people, he would become the Enlightened One. Since the newborn would have done good to the world either way, he was named Sidhhartha, meaning the person who would do good to the world. King Sudhodan wanted the prince to become a powerful monarch one day, so he did everything in his power to prevent his son from being attracted towards a religious life. He prohibited the old, sick, and the religious to wander in the city and prevented any display of dead bodies. The king gave his son 3 great palaces suitable for 3 seasons, which were full of riches and beautiful, talented young women who sang and danced all day to provide pleasure to the prince. Most of his young life, the prince was confined to those palaces. But one day, on one of their rare strolls, the prince hard pressed his faithful attendant Channa to take him outside the city. Channa knew he would be in great danger if the king comes to know about it. But after much deliberation, he took the prince outside the city for the first time. The prince saw an old person trudging on the road pathetically. The prince learned from Channa that everybody would become old one day. On Prince Sidharth's next visit outside the walls of the city, he encountered a sick person who was lamenting with pain and learned from Channa that everybody gets sick one time or other. The prince encountered a funeral on his third visit outside the city gates and learned that everybody dies and it is inevitable. On his fourth visit, he saw a yellow-robed ascetic walking calmly with his head bent. He learned that those are the ones who have renounced the lay life for a peaceful living, seeking an end to suffering. This explanation captivated the prince immensely. He was in great thoughts on the way back home when he learned that his wife had given birth to a son. That night, he fell asleep contemplating about the reality of life. He suddenly woke up at midnight and decided to depart the lay life and go in search of deliverance. He just sneaked a quick look at his newborn son and walked out of the palace with Channa and his horse Kantaka, never to return to the comfortable palace life again. He was 29 years old at that time. Siddhartha wanted to fully understand suffering. He fasted for long periods of time and did other things to cause himself to suffer. He fasted until he was near starvation, just to realize that his death would do no good to anyone. He left the idea of suffering and sat down beneath a peepal tree and started meditating. After 49 days of continuous meditation, he had his answers. The reason for suffering was unending greed of people to have more and more. This wanting never ends, and so does the suffering. And this is how a royal prince became who we today know as the Buddha.